What if I told you that some of the most powerful nuclear weapons in American history were never meant to be seen because they were buried hundreds of feet beneath our feet? During the height of the Cold War, the United States detonated more than 1,000 nuclear devices, yet most people don't realize that nearly 900 of them took place underground, hidden away from the world's eyes. These secret tests weren't just experiments. They were calculated moves in a deadly game of survival, where strategy mattered as much as firepower, and where silence was often the sharpest weapon. Imagine entire mountain ranges hollowed out into command centers, missile silos disguised as farmland, and bunkers so deep they could withstand the end of civilization itself. Why did America invest billions in digging into the earth? And what secrets still lie there today? Stay with me until the end, because every detail will challenge what you think you know about nuclear power and national defense. And if you love exploring hidden military history and the mysteries of strategy, give this video a like, hit subscribe, and share it so I can keep bringing you the stories the world was never meant to hear. When the Cold War began, it wasn't just a clash of armies or ideologies. It was a battle of shadows, of who could hide their strength the deepest. In the late 1950s and early 1960s, the fear of a sudden nuclear strike was so real that American families were building fallout shelters in their backyards. But while ordinary people were stocking canned food, the US military was carving entire fortresses into mountains and deserts. One of the most striking examples is Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. On the surface, it looks like just another rocky peak, but deep inside, engineers built a command center designed to survive a direct nuclear hit. Imagine walking through blast doors weighing 25 tons, knowing behind them sat the nerve center of America's defense. To me, that's not just engineering, it's the psychology of survival, the determination to say, even if the world ends, we will still be standing. I've always found it chilling how secrecy defined those years. The Soviets were digging too, creating their own hidden cities, and both nations lived under the constant suspicion that the other side might strike first. It wasn't about who had the bigger bomb anymore, but who could ensure their retaliation would remain unstoppable. That's why the US began placing nuclear silos across the Midwest, often hidden beneath farmland, where a peaceful field of corn concealed weapons that could destroy continents. This is where underground nuclear projects truly took shape, not as mere bunkers, but as symbols of a nation preparing for the unthinkable. And it makes me wonder, were these sites only about protection or also about intimidation? Because secrecy itself can be a weapon. And that secrecy didn't stop at bunkers. Soon, America would begin testing bombs in places most people never even knew existed. Which brings us to the deserts of Nevada, where silence and sand swallowed some of history's most dangerous experiments.
If the bunkers and missile silos were built to survive, the deserts of Nevada were chosen to hide something else entirely: the fire of creation itself. Starting in the early 1950s, the Nevada test site became the stage for America's most secret experiments. On the surface, it looked like an endless stretch of sand and rock, but beneath it, hundreds of nuclear detonations ripped through the ground. In fact, of more than 1,000 nuclear tests carried out by the United States, the vast majority, nearly 900, were buried underground. That fact alone still stuns me. One of the most unforgettable stories is the Sedan test in 1962. The blast was so powerful, it carved a crater more than 300 meters wide and over 100 meters deep, big enough to swallow a skyscraper. Even today, that scar remains in the Nevada desert, a silent reminder of just how far mankind was willing to go in the pursuit of power. I've always thought of it not just as a hole in the earth, but as a hole in our collective memory, because so much of what happened there remains hidden in classified files. What strikes me most is how these underground tests were sold to the public. Officials claimed they were safer, less visible, less alarming. But I can't help wondering if the real reason was different: secrecy. After all, how do you question something you can't even see? And yet, despite the secrecy, the evidence of those experiments is everywhere. The abandoned bunkers, the warning signs, and the unsettling stories told by workers who lived through it. For me, this chapter of history is not just about technology, it's about the psychology of control. When you bury your tests, you're not just protecting the world from radiation, you're also burying the truth itself. But the Nevada desert was only part of the plan, because while tests shook the ground beneath our feet, America was also preparing vast underground networks of silos and bunkers, places designed not to test weapons, but to launch them. And that's where the story becomes even darker.
If the Nevada desert was America's hidden laboratory, then the plains and mountains became its vaults of survival. Scattered across the Midwest, disguised beneath quiet fields of corn and wheat, stood missile silos. Each one a steel coffin holding an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of wiping out entire cities. To me, there is something haunting about the image. A family farm above ground, and just beneath it, the power to end civilization. The logic was simple but terrifying: survivability. Even if America were struck first, these hidden silos would guarantee a counterattack. It was the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, the grim promise that no war could be won, only ended in fire. And yet, standing above one of those decommissioned silos years later, I couldn't help but feel a chill. These weren't just weapons. There were messages carved into the earth. We will endure, and if we fall, the world falls with us. But silos were only one layer of the plan. Deep inside Cheyenne Mountain, in Colorado, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, was built to survive a direct nuclear strike. Blast doors weighing 25 tons, underground chambers floating on massive springs to absorb shock waves, and air filtration systems designed to keep hundreds alive for months. Walking through photos and blueprints of that complex, I always feel as if I'm peering into a parallel world, one built entirely on fear of the apocalypse. What fascinates me most is the psychology behind these bunkers. They weren't just about saving lives, they were about ensuring continuity of power. Presidents, generals, and command staff would live on, even if millions perished above. That stark reality says more about the priorities of the time than any official speech could. And it makes me wonder, were these doomsday plans really about safety or about control? Because survival for a few is not the same as survival for all. Yet the story doesn't end with Cold War blueprints. Even now, questions remain about new underground facilities, upgraded systems, and black budgets that never see the light of day. Which leads us to the modern era, where the mysteries of America's underground projects continue to evolve hidden in plain sight. It would be easy to believe that underground nuclear projects ended with the Cold War, locked away as relics of a more dangerous time. But the truth is, the story is far from over. In recent decades, whispers of new facilities and classified budgets have kept the mystery alive. Reports surface of billions of dollars flowing into what the Pentagon calls black projects, programs so secret their very existence is denied. And whenever I read those figures, I can't help but wonder, what is still being built beneath our feet? Take the rumors surrounding Raven Rock, sometimes called Site R, tucked away in the mountains of Pennsylvania. Officially, it is a backup Pentagon, but many believe it has been modernized to withstand 21st century warfare, including cyber and space-based threats. And then there's the ongoing speculation about new missile silos, upgraded command bunkers, and tunnels stretching deeper and farther than anything built during the Cold War. Whether true or exaggerated, the fact that these rumors persist tells me something important. The need for secrecy never really vanished. For me, the most unsettling part is how little the public knows. We hear about new defense budgets, we see satellite images that hint at construction, but the real details are buried under layers of classification.
And maybe that's intentional, because in today's world, secrecy itself is part of the strategy. If your adversary doesn't know where your strongest defenses are, they have to assume they're everywhere. I've always believed that these ongoing projects aren't just about weapons. They're about psychology, about keeping America's rivals second-guessing at all times. And honestly, that uncertainty is as powerful as the weapons themselves. So the question becomes, if the Cold War is over, why are we still digging deeper? Is it about survival or about dominance? Perhaps both. And that tension, the balance between fear and power, is what keeps these mysteries alive today. But to truly understand what it all means, we have to step back and ask, what lessons can we take from this long history of secrets, bunkers, and hidden firepower? That's where we head next, into the final reflections on what America's underground projects really tell us about power and survival.
When I look back at the hidden history of America's underground nuclear projects, I don't just see steel doors, missile silos, or desert craters. I see a reflection of what fear and power can drive a nation to build. These projects were born from terror of a first strike, of annihilation, of a world that could end in 15 minutes. And yet, they were also born from determination, the determination to survive, to send a message that America would not be broken, no matter what. What stays with me most is the paradox. On one hand, these underground facilities were built to protect, to reassure, to preserve continuity in a time of chaos. On the other hand, they were also symbols of dominance, weapons hidden beneath farmland and mountain rock to remind adversaries of America's reach. And maybe that's the lesson. Survival is never just about defense. It's about strategy, psychology, and the willingness to prepare for the worst, even when you hope it never comes. Personally, I can't help but feel both awe and unease. Awe at the sheer engineering and vision it took to carve entire worlds beneath the earth. Unease at the reality that these structures existed because we believed the end could come at any moment. And maybe, in some ways, that shadow still lingers today. So what do these depths really teach us? That fear can build fortresses? That secrecy can be as powerful as weapons? And that true survival often lies not in avoiding danger, but in preparing for it relentlessly. But I'd love to hear what you think. Do these underground projects represent strength, or do they expose a deeper vulnerability? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you found this journey into America's hidden nuclear history as fascinating as I did, give this video a like, hit subscribe, and share it with others. Because the more we uncover these secrets together, the more we understand not just our past, but the uncertain future we all face.